there was a research article I read, and it said that it's possible to construct a machine that will be accepted as a fully intelligent and conscious entity. So we're gonna play a little game. The cutout bit of the quote is in reference to a year. So does anyone have any guesses for what year they're talking about? Feel free to shout out or raise hands. Yeah.
2050.
2050? Anyone else like to guess?
2025.
2025. Okay. Well, I'll give you guys a little hints. It is a current year. Is a year that either is or has already happened.
2015.
2015?
Yes.
2015? Any big guess?
2018.
All right. Well, actually, the year this paper was written was in 1989. To give you an idea of how insane that is, one of the most powerful commercial supercomputers of that day was the Cray YMP, picture right here, which at its top spec was able to sustain computing power of just under 3 gigaflops, and a flop is just a floating point operation. Basically, it's math done with decimals. Simple enough. And gigaflops is measured like data, so you have like megabytes, stuff like that goes into it, just like data. To give you an idea of how that compares, I have an Apple iPhone 8, and that thing's processing power is about 166.6 gigaflops, and a modern consumer graphics card that exists, so in this case the RTX 3080, has about 29.77 teraflops of comparable computing power. And let's look at a modern supercomputer. This is Fugaku, the most powerful supercomputer in existence right now. It has about 2 exaflops of power, which is 2 million teraflops of power. So it's clear to see the modern consumer and scientist has way more power than they did back in 1989. So back to that paper. That paper argued that once computers were as intelligent as humans, they could be considered conscious, since in order to become as smart as humans, they would have to develop consciousness. However, they might not even need to be as smart as humans to do that. I mean, just look at other complex mammals, such as dogs or cats. These things can be considered conscious beings, but they're nowhere near as intelligent as people. I mean, it's not nearly as unfathomable that a computer can be as smart as a cat or a dog. I mean, let's just look at Boston Dynamics' Spot robot, which is a robotic dog. The dog can be programmed to do simple tricks like flips, and it can pick itself up after it falls. The dog still can do a lot more complex tasks, such as parkour, and according to CNN, inspect and defuse bombs. Spot can also run fully autonomous data collection in hazardous areas, such as like a construction site or during a blizzard. And it can self-charge itself with its own battery docking station. Do these actions make Spot at least as intelligent as a dog? I think so. But Spot's still limited. I mean, it can learn tricks, but it can't really come up with its own tricks. But there's a computing principle that's gonna help it make it as smart as us, something called Moore's Law. So what is Moore's Law? Well, Moore's Law says that the number of transistors in a silicon processor is going, as technology improves, will double in processors every 2 years. So simply put, Moore's Law basically says that computers are going to get twice as fast every 2 years. So this is the exponential graph showing that goes 10 to the power. As you can see, we've gone from 100 transistors in a square millimeter up to that many. Very much enough. Basically, it's showing that computers are getting exponentially faster over time. So it seems as if an AI can be as smart as a dog today, it only seems inevitable that it's going to be as smart as a human one day. And that's a bit of a scary thought for people. We have depictions of super smart AI in our movies and stuff like that. You can see it in something like Skynet or Ultron or HAL 9000 if you're into older movies. But it's still a worrying thought. I mean, even AI exists today. Here in Wilmington, we have AI that actually controls the red light cameras in the city. It's Wilmington commissioned a program named SafeLight, and it catches and finds people who run red lights. There's one camera right down the road, actually, at the intersection of South College and 17th.
Oh my gosh.
So many people, including the ACLU, argued that these cameras are an invasion of privacy, and that the potential traffic safety improvements would be too negligible to justify taking away people's privacy and due process rights in a traffic court. But that's just today, however. Imagine a few years from now, an exponentially better red light camera capable of near perfect capture of any wrongdoing in an intersection. Imagine a program intelligent enough to anticipate traffic violations, a program that can specifically target certain license plates, or perhaps even certain drivers. A machine that actively self-improves based on patterns and behaviors of others. In its efforts to achieve a goal, most definitely shows a human level of intelligence. In fact, why even have human traffic enforcement at that point? Unfortunately, machines, robots, and artificial intelligence are already replacing human workforces across the country and the world as a whole. Humans run a serious risk of being outpaced by the very things we create. We see it already. Low-skilled hourly jobs are being readily replaced by intelligent robots. According to The Verge, Amazon projects that fully automated warehouse distribution is only a decade away. A serious concern for the 125,000 warehouse workers currently employed by the company within the United States. It's obvious why the company wants to do this. Robots don't cost $15 an hour. Cost for health benefits. Robots don't file for workers' compensation when they get injured, and robots certainly don't unionize. It's simple. There's going to be a struggle between humans and machines for low-skilled jobs, with no clear solution that benefits both employers and workers. The only real solution that would prevent automation would be to lower wages, but you can't do that. People working these jobs can barely survive as is. And according to NPR, even with a higher federal minimum wage of $15 an hour, millions of people would still be in poverty. You could never justify it. And so the automation will keep rolling on, and more people will be replaced by silicone-based workers. So where do these newly unemployed people go now? Without replacement jobs available, they're going straight to the welfare office. I mean, that's what things like Social Security were created for, right? To help people in their time of crisis. There's one small problem with that. So, how many students here have parents who are over 50? Raise hands. All right, so more than half. How about 55? It's still a fair amount of people. So you see, those same parents who are part of the baby boom and maybe sometimes slightly younger, are all about getting to the age where they're gonna start getting a nice check in the mail from Social Security because they're gonna turn 65 soon. And this is gonna be right around the same time where all these jobs are gonna be replaced in the next 10 to 15 years. If you thought this whole COVID crisis was bad, just wait until the government bankrupts itself 3 times over trying to borrow and spend its way out of this next crisis. All those trillions of dollars of debt built up by the government over the last few years are finally going to catch up to us. But we will not have enough tax money, and we won't have the credit to be able to borrow and lend money to finance a recovery. Major government programs such as Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, food stamps, how even military spending will crumble in the face of what could quite possibly be the next Great Depression as humans are replaced by automated workforces. So, what's to save us from this crisis? Is it the government? The same government who will be financially ruined from the drop in tax revenue and major increase in welfare spending? Is it the private industry? Can we rely on the kindness of philanthropy and the innovation of entrepreneurs to create new human work, despite the fact that they have the most to profit from artificial labor? Can the workers themselves fix it? Will they be willing to take on wage cuts to keep their very way of life? There's only one real solution to this inevitable crisis, and it's for us to reform the system before it happens, and to get good leadership to lessen the hurt when it does. So, who's gonna be the one to do it? Well, like when the internet stops working and your parents come knocking on your door, it's the younger generation that will have to do it. We need leaders who aren't gonna be afraid to try something new, something never seen before. I mean, look at other great American leaders in the past and the crises they've faced. George Washington rose up to lead a ragtag continental army to fight the most powerful empire in the world, so that all men, made equal by their Creator, were given equal rights of representation in government. Abraham Lincoln led as commander-in-chief of the Union Army to preserve the Union and end America's original sin, slavery. Theodore Roosevelt, who pushed forward antitrust legislation to take down big monopolies, who took advantage of their consumers and their workers. How about Franklin D. Roosevelt, the guy who took America out of the Great Depression and led us through World War II? These men were all leaders who did unimaginable things to solve the most daunting of problems, and succeeded in doing so. We need a leader who will rise up to the occasion and take this challenge head on and come up with new rules to redefine America. What are going to be the biggest challenges? Well, government spending reform is probably the biggest challenge. Social Security and Medicare alone are projected to reach $109 trillion in unpaid liabilities by 2050, according to the Daily Caller, and are in serious worry of declaring bankruptcy themselves in the next 15 years. According to The Hill, Social Security already reached $43 trillion in total unpaid liabilities in 2019. The most important step will be helping to balance the federal budget. This might include cutting excess spending, hopefully within these programs, but also outside of it. It also might include a wealth tax on either corporations or wealthy Americans who had notably not paid their fair share in the last few years. Making sure government also keeps money in reserve to deal with crisis instead of trying to borrow money at bad interest rates to try and fix the problem now. All of these solutions are something that's going to be critical for dealing with could be the biggest economic problem since the Great Depression. Next, we'll need someone who can pass good policies that satisfy workers and employers alike. We need an approach that is unlike anything ever seen before. Does this mean a limit on how many mechanical workers employers can have? Does this mean government subsidized college education to give those low-skilled workers new skills for better job opportunities? Or will it be investment in new industries where mechanized workers aren't feasible? I don't know the exact policy, but you need someone who can put it into action. Finally, they'll need to be able to work across the aisle with whatever the other political party is. Let's face it, the last few presidents have been very set in their ways, and political parties become more partisan ever since 2000. We need someone who's going to be able to work across and create good compromise that benefits not only themselves, but also all Americans. Because let's put it this way, poor people are both Democrat and Republican. Hopefully, we can find a good leader who can sacrifice some of their party's ideals to create a new and better future for everyone. So, in short, we're in a Frankenstein sort of situation. We've done it. We have a technological marvel that has accomplished everything we could possibly want it to, and it's only getting better day by day. However, like how creating life from scratch seems to be the perfect discovery, it has brought unforeseen consequences. Like how Frankenstein unknowingly and unintentionally scares and hurts the people around him, artificial intelligence threatens to do the same. If we cannot properly control our creation, then we threaten to bring everyone into what would possibly, very possibly be the defining crisis of our lives. Only through strong leadership, reform, and good policy will we be able to hopefully look back on that crisis like we've been able to look back on our most recent crisis, instead of having to spend our adult lives fixing economic ruin. Thank you.